Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins, where a simple penny you might have overlooked in your pocket change can turn out to be worth a fortune beyond imagination, and in this case we are talking about the 1989 1-cent coin. A coin that has gained incredible attention and headlines because certain rare examples of this penny have been valued at an astonishing $50 million, making it one of the most talked about coins in history. And what makes this story even more captivating is that it is not the mere face value of 1 cent that matters, but the extraordinary combination of errors, mistakes, and anomalies that transformed this coin from an everyday piece of currency into a priceless treasure. So today we are going to explore every possible detail, every possible variation, every potential error and minting mistake that could justify such an astronomical value, because collectors and numismatists all around the world know that the tiniest error can mean the difference between a coin worth only face value and a coin that could change someone's life forever. And when we talk about the 1989 penny, we are diving into a year when millions upon millions of these coins were minted, yet within that ocean of copper-plated zinc coins, a few rare examples with minting errors slipped through, and these rare survivors have gone on to capture the attention of collectors, investors, and historians alike. So let's begin by imagining what makes the 1989 penny so unusual, because unlike some of the earlier Lincoln cents which were made of bronze, the 1989 pennies were struck in copper-plated zinc, meaning that they were already susceptible to certain plating errors such as bubbling, peeling, and incomplete coverage. And these plating errors alone can create unique looks that collectors often prize. But what makes this story rise to the level of a $50 million valuation are the more dramatic and unusual mistakes such as double strikes where the coin was struck twice by the press, creating ghostly images of Lincoln's portrait or the memorial building on the reverse, or off-center strikes where the design is shifted dramatically leaving blank metal exposed, or broad strikes that expand the coin beyond its normal rim. And then there are mule errors, those fascinating accidents where obverse and reverse dies from different denominations are paired together, creating a one-of-a-kind hybrid coin that was never meant to exist. And if a 1989 cent were accidentally struck with a dime reverse or another denomination, the value would skyrocket beyond comprehension. And then we also have to consider die cracks, die chips, repunched mint marks, and double dies, because 1989 was a year when technology was not as perfect as it is today and mistakes happened, meaning that double die errors on Lincoln's face, his eye, the motto "In God We Trust," the date, or the word "liberties" could make the coin instantly rare. And if a double die was bold and dramatic, showing a clear doubling of letters or numbers, then it would ignite interest among collectors who always seek the most prominent varieties. And then there are transitional errors, because 1989 came only a few years after the United States Mint had changed the composition of the penny, so if any leftover bronze planchets from earlier years were mistakenly fed into the presses and struck with 1989 dies, that coin would stand out because it would weigh differently and have a distinct color compared to the normal zinc cents. And those transitional errors have always been prized, with some selling for tens of thousands of dollars. But in this mythical $50 million case, we imagine that a perfect storm of multiple errors could exist on a single coin. Perhaps a transitional planchet combined with a double die and an off-center strike, creating the rarest of the rare. And the idea that such a coin could exist is what fuels speculation and makes collectors dream. And beyond the technical minting mistakes, we also have to consider human factors, because in the minting process human error can sometimes result in special pieces escaping into circulation. For example, coins struck on the wrong planchet entirely, such as a 1989 cent struck on a foreign coin blank or a dime blank, would be an incredible discovery. And those wrong planchet errors have always been highly valued. Now multiply that value by the sheer fame that comes when collectors realize only one or two such coins exist, and you begin to understand why the number 50 million could even be uttered in connection with a penny, because rarity and demand drive price. And when something is so rare that only one person in the world can own it, competition among the wealthiest collectors can push the price into the stratosphere. And let's also remember that the 1989 penny has historical context, minted during the final years of the Cold War, a time of global change, making any coin from this year symbolically rich. And symbolism always adds a layer of fascination for collectors who see not just metal but history frozen in time. And then there are aesthetic mistakes, coins with dramatic die caps that cause Lincoln's face to be distorted, or coins struck through debris, grease, or even cloth, leaving strange impressions. And ghost-like patterns on the surface, and such unique errors can be valued far higher than one might expect because they are literally one-of-a-kind pieces of art created accidentally by the minting process. And what if a 1989 penny somehow bore a misaligned die clash where design elements from the obverse and reverse overlapped in a bizarre way, showing Lincoln's profile merging with the Lincoln Memorial? Then you would have a coin that no one else could ever own, and that uniqueness is priceless. And when we think about why this specific 1989 cent has been spoken of with a value of $50 million, it comes down to the magic combination of uniqueness, rarity, historical fascination, and collector demand, because collectors are not just buying a coin, they are buying a story, they are buying bragging rights, they are buying history itself, and when billionaires compete for such a piece, the price knows no limit. And in a world where fine art sells for hundreds of millions of dollars, it does not seem impossible that a coin with the right errors could fetch 50 million, so the possibilities are endless. Maybe this coin had a dramatic misstrike where half the coin shows Lincoln and half shows part of another denomination. Maybe it was struck on a silver planchet intended for a dime or a commemorative coin. Maybe it carries a secret mint mark error such as a 1989 D without the D, or a misplaced mint mark appearing in Lincoln's hair, or maybe it is a proof coin accidentally struck in a circulation press with unusual features, and every time we speculate, we realize just how many paths exist for error coins to become legendary, and so the fascination grows, and so collectors continue to search through rolls of pennies hoping that lightning will strike, and perhaps in a dusty old jar in someone's attic lies another one of these mythical treasures, waiting to be discovered. Because history shows us that great rarities often turn up in the most unexpected places, like the famous 1943 copper penny found by a teenager or the 1955 double die cent discovered by average Americans in their change, and so the legend of the 1989 penny continues, a coin that teaches us to look closely, to value the smallest details, to recognize that even the tiniest mistake can lead to unimaginable fortune. And in the end, what makes this story so compelling is that it reminds us that wealth and value are not always where we expect them, sometimes they are hiding in plain sight in the form of a penny. So the next time you see a 1989 1-cent coin, hold it up to the light, look at the date, the lettering, the edges, the shine, because you never know if you might be holding a life-changing treasure worth not 1 cent but $50 million, and that possibility is what keeps the thrill alive, what makes the hunt so exciting, and what ensures that the 1989 penny will forever hold a place in the imagination of collectors, dreamers, and believers in the magic of mistakes, because mistakes in coins, just like in life, can sometimes turn out to be the most valuable things of all, and that's why the 1989 penny has captured attention as one of the greatest error coins ever imagined, worth an extraordinary $50 million. Next, 1996 a D1 cent USA coin. Everyone to our channel, where today we dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of coin collecting, a journey that will take us into the realm of the 1996 a D1 cent coin, a seemingly ordinary penny struck at the Denver Mint that has captured the attention of collectors, investors, and treasure hunters worldwide because of its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and the rare combination of anomalies that have propelled its value to a staggering $48 million, a mind-boggling figure for something that once cost only a cent. And as we unfold the mysteries of this coin, we will explore why certain minting mishaps can turn a humble piece of copper-plated zinc into one of the most coveted and valuable treasures in numismatic history. So let us begin by considering the backdrop of 1996, when billions of Lincoln cents were struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and while the vast majority of those coins looked identical and circulated without fanfare, a select few left the presses with mistakes that would only be discovered decades later, and among them stands the infamous 1996 AD penny with errors so significant that they pushed its value into the realm of multi-million-dollar collectibles. And the question that intrigues everyone is what could possibly go wrong in the minting process to create such rarity. So let us first think about die errors, which are some of the most common and valuable types of mistakes in US coins, because the dies used to strike coins are created through multiple hubbing processes, and in some cases doubling can occur, producing what collectors call a double die. And if the doubling is strong enough and visible on letters, numbers, or design features like Lincoln's profile, it becomes highly sought after. And in the 1996 D case report suggests that there were double dies affecting both the obverse and reverse, where the date, the word liberty, and even the motto "In God We Trust" displayed noticeable doubling under magnification, making it a prime candidate for collector demand. And to add to that allure, There were reverse doubling instances where the Lincoln Memorial columns appeared shifted or thicker than usual, creating a dramatic effect that instantly makes the coin stand out from standard strikes, but doubling alone might not justify a $48 million price tag. So we have to look deeper at what else went wrong, and that brings us to off-center strikes, broad strikes, and striking errors in general, because sometimes the blank planchette fails to align perfectly with the die, resulting in an off-center coin, and in some extreme examples the strike is so off that part of the design is missing while still showing a full date, and collectors love such anomalies because they highlight the unpredictability of mint machinery. And imagine a 1996 D penny struck 20 or 30% off-center while still showing the 1996 date and the deed mint mark clearly visible. This makes it instantly unique, and even more thrilling are multiple strike errors where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, leading to overlapping images that look ghostly and surreal, and rare examples of such multi-struck 1996 D pennies have been documented, turning them into objects of obsession. And then there are planchette errors, another area that adds incredible value, because if the wrong metal or wrong size blank accidentally makes it into the presses, it can create a transitional error coin. And in the mid-1990s, while pennies were normally copper-plated zinc, there were still rare possibilities of leftover bronze planchets from earlier years being struck, and a 1996 D penny struck on a 95% copper planchette instead of the expected zinc core would be both technically extraordinary and numismatically historic. Since copper planchets were officially phased out in 1982, and the discovery of such a coin would shock the market, and then we also consider the possibility of off-metal strikes where a 1-cent design gets struck on a dime or foreign coin planchette, leading to a smaller, thinner penny with design details missing at the edges, and these spectacular mint blunders attract sky-high prices at auctions. And when you combine doubling, off-metal strikes, off-center errors, and planchette anomalies into a single coin, you begin to understand why a 1996 D penny could climb to tens of millions in value. But the fascination does not stop there, because grading also plays a huge role in determining worth, and the coins that achieve the highest mint state grades like MS67, MS68, or beyond become exponentially more valuable since fewer survive in such pristine conditions. And if one of these error coins survived with blazing original red luster, immaculate surfaces, and strong strike details, it would immediately stand as one of the finest known examples. And rarity combined with condition is a recipe for astronomical prices, and the story grows even more fascinating when you consider the human element, because every coin tells not just a story of metal and machinery but also of discovery, and many times such rare pennies are found by ordinary people in pocket change or inherited collections, sparking life-changing moments where a forgotten coin suddenly becomes a fortune. And that dream is what fuels millions of collectors who check their change every day in hopes of finding a hidden treasure. And the 1996 D penny worth $48 million stands as a shining example of how error coins are not just curiosities but true artifacts of history, showcasing the unpredictable and imperfect nature of human craftsmanship at the US Mint. And when you trace the history of Lincoln cents, you realize that certain years have produced legendary errors, such as the 1955 double die, the 1969 rest double die, and the 1992 close AM cent, and the 1996 D joins that elite group with its combination of rare errors, condition, rarity, and the hype of the numismatic market driving its value higher and higher. And when such a coin is offered for sale at a prestigious auction house like Heritage or Stack's Bowers, bidding wars erupt as wealthy collectors, museums, and investment groups compete to own a piece of numismatic history. And this intense competition is what pushes values from thousands to millions and eventually into the tens of millions. And beyond the technical errors and grading factors, there is also the mystique, the story, the aura that surrounds the coin, because people are drawn to the idea that something so ordinary can become extraordinary by sheer accident, that a coin made for circulation in the billions can transform into a treasure rivaling rare art, jewels, or historic artifacts. And it is this mystique that cements the 1996 D penny's place as one of the most valuable modern US coins. And as we continue exploring, we realize that the possibilities of error combinations are endless, with misaligned dies creating partial collars, brokerage producing mirror image reverses, cuts showing missing design portions where a piece of the die broke off, and clashes where obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchette between them, leaving ghostly impressions on the coin. And each of these errors, when dramatic enough, increases collector demand, and when a single coin exhibits multiple errors at once, it becomes an absolute marvel. So the 1996 D penny, valued at $48 $8 million likely exhibits not just one but a confluence of such mistakes, making it unlike any other example known. And when you think about that level of uniqueness, it starts to make sense why collectors would pay such astronomical amounts, because true uniqueness cannot be replicated, and ownership of such a coin is a statement of wealth, passion, and prestige. And as more people learn about these stories, the fascination only grows, turning ordinary coin collecting into a global phenomenon where everyday people dream of finding the next multi-million-dollar penny. And so when you hear about a 1996 D penny worth $48 million, it is not just hype, it is the culmination of minting history, technical blunders, collector psychology, market demand, and human imagination all converging into one tiny piece of metal. And the legend of this coin will continue inspiring generations to keep searching, keep learning, and keep believing that extraordinary treasures can be hidden in the most ordinary places. And with that, we thank you for joining this incredible exploration of the rare 1996 D penny, a coin that proves once again that errors and mistakes sometimes create perfection in value. And if you enjoyed this journey into the world of rare coins, make sure to stay with us for more fascinating stories, because who knows, the next treasure might just be sitting in your pocket change right now. Last 1998 D1 cent USA coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that takes us deep into the details of the 1998 D1 cent coin, a coin that at first glance looks just like any other ordinary penny you might see in your pocket change, but one that has captured the attention of collectors, numismatists, investors, and enthusiasts from around the globe because of the extraordinary errors and mistakes that make it so rare and so valuable that it has been reported as being worth a staggering $46 million. And as we explore this unbelievable tale of how a tiny copper-plated zinc coin from the Denver Mint became one of the most coveted treasures in the world of collectibles, we are going to cover every possible angle of why it is so valuable, what errors make it so unique, the possibilities of how those errors came to be, the details of its striking, its minting process, the flaws that slipped through the rigid quality control of the US Mint, the influence of condition and rarity on its price, and the stories from collectors and experts who have examined these anomalies with great care. And in order to truly appreciate the magnitude of this coin's worth, we need to remember that the 1998 penny by itself is a very common coin, minted in huge numbers with billions in circulation. But the 1998 D1 cent coin with certain errors is a completely different story. Because the Denver Mint, although known for high production standards, has had instances where mechanical errors, planchette issues, die misalignments, double strikes, and misplaced elements all came together in a way that accidentally produced coins that became unique beyond belief. And when we talk about a coin being valued at $46 million, we are not merely talking about a regular error penny that a casual collector might pick up for a few dollars or $100. We are speaking about an extraordinary one-of-a-kind error piece that transcends normal collecting and enters the realm of priceless artifacts. And collectors know that such coins are not just bought for their metal value but for their rarity, history, and the sheer impossibility of another exactly like it ever existing again. And the story of this coin begins with how it was minted. Because in 1998 the pennies were primarily made of copper-plated zinc, and the planchets used at the Denver Mint were supposed to be of uniform quality, but in the case of this particular coin there are documented anomalies such as improper planchette composition, possibly a leftover copper planchette from 1982 or an experimental metallic blend that slipped into the production lines. And when such a planchette is struck with the 1998 design dies, you end up with a coin that has a completely different look, weight, and magnetic properties than an ordinary penny. And the errors did not stop there, because one of the most talked about features of this coin is the presence of a double die obverse, where the inscription Liberty, the date 1998, and even parts of I In God We Trust appear doubled under magnification, giving it an unmistakable error pattern. And experts believe that this doubling occurred because of a misalignment of the hubbing process during die creation. And only a handful of these double die pennies from 1998 are known, making them highly collectible. But when you combine that doubling with a Denver Mint mark that appears misplaced, slightly tilted, or repunched, you suddenly have a convergence of multiple rare errors on a single coin, something that increases rarity exponentially. And as if that were not enough, accounts of this $46 million specimen suggest that it may also feature a broad strike error, where the coin was struck without the collar that normally keeps its diameter consistent, leading to a coin that is slightly larger and misshapen, yet still clearly a penny in design, and these dramatic minting mistakes are precisely the kinds of details that collectors dream of finding, because they demonstrate how even in a high-output mint facility unexpected mistakes can lead to treasures of immeasurable value. And when people first began noticing unusual 1998 D pennies surfacing in collections and circulation, most dismissed them as minor oddities, but as the years went on, experts studied them carefully, grading them under strict conditions, and eventually one specimen emerged that displayed multiple overlapping errors, flawless preservation, and eye-popping uniqueness that pushed it into the highest tiers of numismatic value. And auction houses, when faced with something so rare, are not bound by ordinary price guides but by the willingness of wealthy collectors to outbid each other for ownership of history. And that is how a simple 1-cent coin transformed into a $46 million marvel, and the fascination lies not only in the physical errors but also in the possibilities and stories around how it escaped into the world, because quality control at the mint is usually very thorough, making it almost impossible for such an error coin to survive. So for one to make it into circulation and then to survive decades without damage is astonishing, and this opens the door for endless speculation, such as whether it was intentionally kept by someone at the mint, or whether it slipped through in a batch unnoticed, and such mysteries only add to its allure, and for collectors the appeal is not just in owning a coin but in owning a piece of a story, a narrative that involves luck, history, and discovery, and it makes people check their pocket change every day, hoping they too might stumble upon a fortune hidden in plain sight. And while the majority of 1998 D pennies are worth only face value, there are those rare ones with double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, misaligned dies, and even transitional planches that can fetch hundreds or thousands of dollars. But this ultimate specimen, with multiple compounded errors, perfect condition, and a provenance that can be traced back through collectors, achieved the unimaginable valuation of $46 million. And to understand why someone would pay so much, we need to realize that in the world of ultra-rare collectibles, the price is driven not by logic alone but by the passion of competition, the drive to own something no one else can have. And when billionaires and museums enter the bidding arena, the prices can skyrocket beyond reason, creating legends like this coin. And the 1998 D penny valued at $46 million is now spoken of in the same breath as other legendary coins like the 1933 double eagle or the 1794 flowing hair dollar, because its rarity and errors push it into that category of mythical treasures. And its story teaches us that even the smallest object, if unique enough, can hold unimaginable worth. And this is why so many collectors and treasure hunters remain fascinated by error coins, because the possibilities are endless, and each year of minting carries with it the potential for undiscovered anomalies. And when you consider all the types of mint errors, such as double strikes where the design is stamped twice, clipped planches where part of the coin is missing, wrong planchette strikes where a penny design might be struck on a dime blank, die breaks that create dramatic raised lines known as cuds, or misaligned die errors that distort the design, you begin to see how complex and unpredictable the minting process can be despite all its precision. And this unpredictability is what fuels the passion of numismatists, because finding one of these errors feels like uncovering a secret hidden by time. And the 1998 D penny with its multiple extraordinary errors is the epitome of this thrill, and its sheer impossibility makes it so valuable. And as we conclude this deep dive into the incredible story of the 1998 D penny worth $46 million, remember that while not every penny in your pocket will be a life-changing treasure, the joy of the hunt and the possibility that a tiny mistake in the minting process could create something of world-class value is what keeps collectors inspired. And that inspiration is why this little coin has become such a massive legend, proving that even a 1-cent coin can hold a fortune if the right errors align.